But yesterday we were sitting here after those incredible numbers from NVIDIA talking about a company that is killing it in every way, whose stock, frankly, you could make an argument is not even expensive based on its growth rate. And we were expecting things were going to be very strong yesterday, and they were in the early going. And now you're just sitting here telling me, all right,
you're in Nebius, and you're fighting for your life for Bitcoin, for Bitcoin immersion, and you're thinking to yourself, this is I gotta get out of Elastic. And what can you sell? What has a bid? NVIDIA. It was collateral damage, David. It was collateral damage.
Sell what you can, in other words.
Sell what you can.
Yeah.
I mean, instead of the stuff that is obviously, I think, endangered. Because I think NVIDIA reverses today. I think the people who are selling it, again, they could be people who are locking it in, or they could be people who are saying, listen, I need money badly. But they'll finish. They'll get margined out. Watch NVIDIA between 1 and 2 when all the margin's done, and I think it can rally. We just were on Friday. At 247, you will know exactly what. I'm not kidding.
What was that? What?
247.
247 time? You mean today?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. That's when the big rallies on Friday. 247. That's the winning rallies. Just watch it.
Okay.
It's a 7-8 minute win.
Thank you for the specificity of time.
Well,
I
had to go because he didn't like my personal stuff. I decided to go and do a little empirical work, and it's 247.
Okay.
Good. And let the NVIDIA look. NVIDIA is going to tell you. It's going to tell you. It's going to stop. It's going to stop going down, and then you have a real rally. But you can't have a rally on Williams.
Well,
most people don't
right
even
now
know
we are
Williams
positive on both the S&P and the Nasdaq.
But it's going to be fine. I just not. Let's just. It's a. I find it's a long day. See, there's the first 10 minutes have occurred. Okay. But NVIDIA is going to tell a tale and let everybody get out who has to get out, and then you go back and say, okay, my problem is OpenAI, but maybe Altman says something today. He says, you know what, Microsoft, we are working hand in glove with Microsoft. And then somebody from Anthropic comes out and says the business to business is really good. And then you have YouTube not saying anything because they're so good they don't need to, which is what I like. Never complain and never explain. Who said that?
Well, they might come out and say there's elements of a bubble. You better stop investing so much on our turf.
Bubble. Yeah. Oh, Jensen refuted that really beautifully.
All right, guys, you want an update on Warner Brothers? I know you've been sitting on the edge of your seats. Really? You got more to say about this? How is it even possible? Oh, and then he just doesn't say a word. He just turns around.
I thought you were going to do a favor.
I am trying to, but then he gets all sad. We got to cheer him up now.
It's okay. Go ahead. I'm going to talk to your mom.
We're going to talk about NVIDIA right now. It might be a bull market record. We wait 17 minutes to get into it. Everybody owns it. Kevin, I'm going to come over to you. NVIDIA is still lower right now. It's down about 1/3%, 0.5% right now, but the markets are higher. Also, we saw a great earnings report, and the markets moved lower. What does that say about NVIDIA? Is it time to change the way we look at it as a potential market mover on earnings or a bellwether of where the market's going directionally?
How sad is that when you have earnings that were that positive across the board, and when the guidance was so good that the stock sells off? You and I were talking in the morning when the stock was up, and here it is down again for a second day in a row. I would look at this as opportunities to add to it. I think Josh nailed it this morning at the open with respect to all of these companies that are down. They're going to attract money. Maybe there's tax selling. Maybe there's reasons people need to take profits here. You know, you've got wins in NVIDIA. And so to the extent that you're going to take profits there and offset it, kind of makes sense. But from a fundamental and a foundation standpoint, is this the bellwether that'll lead the market higher? Probably will continue to do so until it proves otherwise.
Seach, you feeling bullish on this one? I mean, Wells Fargo came out, maintained an overweight rating, price target 265. I mean, looking at where the stock's trading right now, it's trading under 180 right now.
And at a 26 times forward PE. And it rarely gets down to these levels from a valuation perspective. We've added it 2 times. We could never own this company for so long because it didn't meet our valuation relative to growth screens. We bought it several times. We're still slightly underweight NVIDIA, but have a very big position. If you look at what the opportunity is in this company, I suspect they're going to continue to deliver on expectations for a very long long time. I think what was interesting is markets were very much pivoting because of the backdrop, not so much as it related to earnings and what NVIDIA did, but when you get from companies that are delivering good earnings and starting to sell off, it is changing the narrative in the market. Hopefully that's not too long that happens, but you could see there was this desire to deleverage. You had Tom Lee on the show, I think, Frank, and he was talking about what was going on in crypto and the deleveraging there that kind of created an interesting lead for some of these other tech companies, these risk-on companies to follow. I think these are different worlds. I also think there's been too many parallels, and you saw it in these earnings, of NVIDIA to Cisco in the late 90s, where they were taking pieces of some of their customers.
Vendor financing.
Yeah, vendor financing. You know what? This is an important business for them to get this data infrastructure built out. I feel like we are in a very different environment relative to late 99. Sure, there's things that rhyme all the time. However, these companies that are driving this are very profitable, very solid balance sheets, and I think are going to be well supported.
Kevin, I'm going to come back to you in a second to talk about some of the other things that are going on that are kind of reminiscent not only of the .com, but also of the great financial crisis. But before we do that, Josh, coming over to you, looking at NVIDIA. Week to date, down 5% again after those fantastic earnings. Is this a viable dip, or do you need to wait?
I mean, I can't buy it. My average cost is single digits, and I've held it forever. But like, if I were not invested in the stock and I had no position, and I was like wondering, how did I miss out? What do I do? Blah blah blah. I'd pull the trigger at 180. I think the stock gets back over 200. We already saw a sneak preview of that a few weeks back. Nothing in that earnings report or in the guidance tell me that things are not even better than they were the last time it was above 200. And from my perspective, I think it's inevitable. So I would not be afraid to buy it here.
We have a nose alert right now. Chris, stay with me here on NVIDIA. The stock is at session highs on reports that U.S. officials are having early discussions about letting NVIDIA sell its H200 AI chips to China. That is a move that would mark a major win for NVIDIA. You heard a lot of analysts and even Jensen Huang on the earnings call talking about optimistic expectations for next year, even without China, if suddenly the White House were to reverse itself and allow these chips to be sold to China. That could really boost NVIDIA's bottom line. And there you're seeing the stock reacting now up a full percent. Chris, back to you. These AI plays have been sort of the theme that is driving all the other market action. Is that true for puts and calls as well?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up NVIDIA. Of course, we're talking about NVIDIA every day, but we've been talking about since the earnings yesterday and since the reversal. Similarly, in the options, usually you see a lot of FOMO in the NVIDIA options, a lot of bid to the upside options, less people reaching for downside protection. That's kind of flipped a little bit since yesterday's reversal and over the course of the last week. We're seeing more demand for downside, less demand for upside. And that's why, something like the news you just mentioned is a little bit of a surprise, and that could change things. We'll have to check out, how the NVIDIA options react to that breaking news.
All right, I hope you're all doing well today and staying calm in this market. There's a rumor making the rounds that the administration is internally considering allowing NVIDIA to sell the H200 in China. I have no idea if this rumor is correct or not, and I'm just bringing it to your attention so that you're aware of it. Even if the administration were to allow the H200 to be sold in China, I honestly don't know if the Chinese government would allow it. China is pushing hard to accelerate the development of their own domestic alternatives after the export control that was placed on NVIDIA's H20 earlier this year. It is to the United States' strategic benefit that Chinese developers build on the American tech stack. 50% of the world's AI developers live in China, and wherever the developers go, those are the platforms that will succeed. But now, after the trade tensions and export controls, China is acutely aware of this fact, and so I don't know if they would allow the H200 in China or not. They appear to be determined to expedite the development of their own domestic ecosystem. If the geopolitics were to subside and both the US and China were to allow NVIDIA to sell the H200 in China, then that would represent a very positive surprise for the stock. Currently, NVIDIA has zeroed out all China revenue from their forecasts, and analysts have removed China revenue from their models. Any opening for NVIDIA to sell into China would represent additional upside, and we would promptly see many analysts upgrade their NVIDIA price targets. The good news is that regardless of what happens with the China situation, NVIDIA's business is growing strong even without having any exposure to China. In NVIDIA's Q3 earnings report, we saw a revenue growth acceleration thanks largely to the swift production ramp of Blackwell Ultra. And there is plenty of demand around the world outside of China for NVIDIA's business to continue growing. The world continues to be severely compute constrained in the face of extremely strong AI demand. Also, NVIDIA will be presenting at the UBS Global Technology and AI Conference on December 2nd at 6:35 a.m. Pacific, 9:35 a.m. Eastern. This event will likely have an impact on how the stock trades in the short term, given that the event is geared toward the financial community. Now, very briefly, I want to address IRON and mention something that we heard on the NVIDIA earnings call that is directly relevant to IRON. I continue to be bullish on IRON for at least the next 1 to 2 years. That being said, I understand that the price action in the stock has not been ideal over the past couple weeks. Please hear me well. Short-term price action in the stock does not change the long-term fundamental trajectory of the company. If IRON is able to deliver on their forecast for 2026, which I think they likely will given their track record of delivering on their promises, then I honestly think this company is cheap at the current moment given its future growth. I'm not saying that it's going to move up in a straight line, but I'm saying that I'm bullish on IRON for at least the next 1 to 2 years. IRON has projected that they will reach a $3.4 billion annual revenue run rate by the end of 2026. At a conservative price to sales multiple of 10, we're looking at $34 billion in market cap, and at what I think is a more reasonable PS multiple of 15, we're looking at $51 billion in market cap. That has not changed even after the recent sell-off. Now I want to mention something NVIDIA said on their earnings call. NVIDIA told us on their earnings call that 100 GPUs shipped 6 years ago are still running at full utilization today. That is extremely positive news for a company like IRON. Why is this information relevant? Because IRON has told us that they are able to get a payback on the GPUs after 2 years, or 3 years if you count infrastructure. NVIDIA is telling us that the useful life of the GPUs are longer than what many previously thought. This is due mainly to the world being compute constrained in the face of extremely strong AI demand. Now, if supply eventually catches up to demand and the world is no longer compute constrained, then that would be a different situation. But I honestly think we are at least 3 to 5 years away from something like that happening if it happens at all. Jensen appears to agree with this time frame, given his commentary on the BG Squared podcast back in September. Considering that time frame, and given what I'm seeing today, I feel very comfortable saying that I am bullish on IRON for at least the next 1 to 2 years. And I still think there is material upside over that time, based purely on the fundamental trajectory of the company. The price action in the stock over the past 2 weeks does not change the long-term fundamental thesis. Now let's talk some more about NVIDIA. I want to remind you that the recent market sell-off has nothing to do with NVIDIA. On Thursday, the sell-off began around 10:45 a.m. Eastern due to 2 factors. Morgan Stanley said they no longer expect a Fed interest rate cut in December, and Fed Governor Cook said she sees an increased likelihood of outsized asset price declines amid high valuations in stocks. That appears to be what sparked the market sell-off. Then shortly after that, BLS announced in a statement that the employment situation for November 2025 is to be released on December 16th, which is after the next FOMC meeting. This caused market participants to worry even more that there may not be a December rate cut because perhaps the Fed won't have enough data to justify a rate cut. All of this news exacerbated the downward price action that was already taking place in crypto and other risk-on assets. And so again, this sell-off had nothing to do with NVIDIA, and it's important that we have a clear understanding of what's actually going on. NVIDIA's earnings report was fantastic, and the guidance was even better. There's a reason why NVIDIA traded notably higher on Thursday morning before all of the Fed speak happened and the worries about interest rates flared up. In case you've missed recent videos, I want to once again go through what we learned from NVIDIA's earnings because we learned a lot of important details, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page moving forward. This was a very solid quarter with very strong guidance. Revenue came in at $57 billion, beating both the consensus and whisper numbers. EPS was $1.30, beating estimates, and non-GAAP gross margins came in at 73.6%. Next quarter revenue guidance came in at a very strong $65 billion, beating both the consensus and the whisper numbers. Guidance for next quarter non-GAAP gross margins came in at 75%. You may remember that early this year, NVIDIA told us that margins would move lower as they would speed up Blackwell production, and that margins would return to the mid 70% range late this fiscal year. NVIDIA is delivering on that promise. Jensen also said, quote, Blackwell sales are off the charts and cloud GPUs are sold out. Compute demand keeps accelerating and compounding across training and inference, each growing exponentially. Now let's get into some of the interesting details that we learned from the earnings call. I'm just going to rapid fire multiple points that stuck out to me because we learned a lot of important details across many different topics. First off, Rubin is on track to launch in the second half of 2026. NVIDIA addressed the concerns about GPU depreciation head-on, with CFO Colette Kress saying that 100 GPUs shipped 6 years ago are still running at full utilization today, powered by a vastly improved software stack. This is in full agreement with what I've been saying for the past couple weeks following Michael Burry's recent post on X. The hyperscalers are not extending the useful life of GPUs in order to artificially boost earnings. Rather, they have come to the realization that the useful life of the hardware is longer than what they originally estimated due to two factors: NVIDIA's continuous improvements of older generation hardware through software, and second, the world being compute constrained in the face of extremely strong AI demand. Those are the exact two reasons NVIDIA leadership gave as to why A100s are still running at full utilization 6 years after they shipped. This is not a bubble. This is insatiable demand. Developers will use whatever compute they can get their hands on right now, and that, in combination with continuous improvement of the hardware via software from NVIDIA, extends the useful life of the hardware. Ignore the noise. Now let's get back to the rapid fire of important points from the earnings call. NVIDIA expects input costs to rise in fiscal 2027, but they are working to keep gross margins in the mid 70% range. NVIDIA does not see an AI bubble at all. They see the complete opposite. Jensen was asked to clarify the $500 billion graphic he showed on stage at GTC in October, and it is exactly what I've been telling you. He meant there will be $350 billion in revenue over the next 5 financial quarters, and $150 billion worth of GPUs has already shipped. The $500 billion number is cumulative revenue through both 2025 and 2026. And on the topic of the $500 billion, NVIDIA CFO said, quote, "The number will grow." Jensen also said that with each new generation architecture, NVIDIA's share in the data center grows. Jensen said that NVIDIA's GB200 and GB300 are substantially ahead of the competition on inference. Jensen told us that the GB200 has a multi-year lead on the competition when it comes to inference. Keep this in mind the next time you hear someone say that NVIDIA systems aren't good at inference, because they're actually the best on the market at inference and most likely will be the best for years to come. Jensen was asked if his views on custom ASICs has changed, and he emphasized that AI is incredibly diverse, and you want a system that can handle a wide variety of workloads given that AI is constantly changing. Jensen was asked about NVIDIA's methodology in choosing whether to do share buybacks or invest in other companies. Jensen said that NVIDIA will absolutely continue to do share buybacks, and he also emphasized that every single investment NVIDIA has made has been a strategic investment to expand the CUDA ecosystem. NVIDIA is not simply throwing money around. They're making strategic, very high probability investments. Jensen was asked how the large spending commitments from companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, and others will be paid for in the coming years. And Jensen reminded us that these companies are the fastest growing companies in history, and their revenues are growing exponentially. They will be able to make the investments as their revenues scale. Additionally, Jensen told us that many well-known large enterprise companies will soon start spending big on AI, which will help fund the build-out. Jensen also spoke about the importance of agentic AI at length. And CFO Colette Kress also mentioned physical AI, saying that physical AI addresses a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity and, quote, the next leg of growth for NVIDIA. As a reminder, I'm expecting a surge in compute demand fueled by agentic AI that extends well into 2026, and then I think the next major surge of compute demand after that will be fueled by physical AI. There's a reason why I've been pounding the table about NVIDIA's physical AI business in recent months, and Colette reaffirmed why on the earnings call. In her words, it addresses a, quote, multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. I am completely serious when I say that I think NVIDIA's physical AI business may eventually be larger than their current data center business, and I don't think this is getting enough attention right now. But I think it will get a lot of attention in 2026 and 2027. NVIDIA sells the hardware for the data centers where the models are trained. They offer Omniverse where the models are taught and tested, and NVIDIA also sells the hardware that allows on-device real-time inference through NVIDIA AGX, allowing robots to have intelligent interactions with the real world even when they are not connected to a data center. Notice that NVIDIA is taking a holistic platform approach to physical AI, and they're embedding themselves as the underlying foundation supporting all of it. Over 2 million developers are already building on the NVIDIA robotics stack, and this is not getting enough attention. I continue to think that most analysts' long-term NVIDIA estimates are too low given what's ahead. Overall, this earnings report was fantastic, and the guidance was even better. As for production ramps, Blackwell Ultra is ramping very quickly right now, leading to revenue growth acceleration. Rubin is on track to launch in 2026. Then we're expecting Rubin CPX at the end of 2026. Later on, we're expecting the launch of Rubin Ultra in 2027 and Feynman after that in 2028. We have a clear data center product roadmap stretching into 2028, and Jensen believes there will be $3 to $4 trillion of global AI factory build-out between now and 2030. That means Jensen is expecting growing AI demand and an expanding total addressable market underpinning all of this. I don't think we are anywhere near any type of bubble bursting type of event. With all of this in mind, I seriously think that NVIDIA still has plenty of runway ahead of it, and I think this company will be worth substantially more in future years than it is today. At least that's my view of the situation. Remember to stay calm in this market. Remember to maintain a long-term perspective, and do not make any hasty or irrational decisions. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.